Predator Killer Bear Origins, the crazed grizzly bear that mangled a Yautja to protect its family. Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Terry and this is Marvelous Videos. Do you consider yourself a fan of the Predator franchise? Honestly, who isn't? What started off as a sci-fi horror action flick in 1987 was eventually made into a film series which further spawned a list of absolutely unputdownable comics, novels, and to add to that, a bunch of engrossing video games. Well, speaking of comics, there's plenty of them, out of which some are these insane crossovers that you couldn't possibly have imagined. It's true most of the comics aren't really what you'd call faithful renditions of the movies, but here's the thing, they're a whole new level, each having its distinct essence intact. Now, with the release of the new and the fifth installment in the Predator film franchise, which is officially streaming on Hulu right now, we thought we'd take a trip down memory lane and explore the most exciting Predator comic series to date, Kevin J. Anderson and Scott Colin's Predator, Primal. Of course, the 1997 comic series published by Dark Horse Comics isn't connected to Prey, the same way the movie isn't related to any of the preceding flicks in the franchise. Except perhaps Predator 2. But it'd be interesting to explore the origins of the Predator Killer Bear. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Now let's begin. Predator Primal Part 1. Issue number 1 opens with the readers getting a sweeping view of the vast Alaskan wilderness. We're at the Denali National Park, one that's known for its virgin parkland, majestic wildlife, and of course, the towering centerpiece, Denali. Obviously, the national park is home to some of the most native wildlife. Having said that, a caribou is spotted in the midst of the wilderness, relishing on the grass, when it gets alerted of another presence. In the caribou's fearful eyes, we can see the reflection of what looks like a pair of blades, and our own fears are confirmed when a predator is seen pouncing on the helpless animal. The apex hunter drags the dead body of the animal by its antlers for some distance until he is seen climbing up the staircase of what is revealed to be his spaceship. A peek inside reveals what looks like some kind of a shrine with an array of skulls on display. The readers can see his trophy wall, and now there's a new addition to it, the skull of the caribou. So here's the thing about this extraterrestrial species, they're known for hunting and killing for sport. Mind you, the deadlier the kill, the greater the glory, and after they're done, their heads are collected as trophies, then reduced to skulls and put on display. Anyway, coming back to the storyline, the Predator is seen gearing himself up for his next hunt and going back to the forest. After discovering what looks like the footprints of a bear, he decides to follow the tracks in the hope of finding a bigger and deadlier prey. Next, we're introduced to a forest ranger, Anna, who is posted at the Fire Observatory Station, US Forestry Service. From her conversation with her co-worker Glenn, we find out that it's the hottest summer on record in Alaska. Glenn tells Anna that it's her turn on the watch, and puts on his VCR to watch his favorite sport, World Star Wrestling. He calls it Primal Combat, one that has this crude display of human power and the ferocity of mankind unleashed. Anna disagrees and simply addresses human beings as wimps. She firmly believes that if it's a human being versus an apex predator, the human wouldn't stand a chance. She further states that the national park is filled with some very serious predators and gives Glenn the example of how a full-grown grizzly can effortlessly take down the toughest human wrestler in the world. Glenn reminds Anna how the grizzlies are on the verge of extinction when the human population have already crossed 5 billion. This informs readers more about Anna's job. She is seen to study the grizzly bear population in the area, track their movements, see what they do, where they go, and to understand the life of the young bear cubs. Also as part of the process, she has tied tracking devices on 2 of the cubs. In a different part of the park, the 2 cubs are seen playing with each other when one of them gets aimed at with a 3-pointed laser beam on its chest. Seconds later, it's hit with a blast and it falls dead on the ground. No points for guessing who's responsible for its death, and we quickly get a look at the perpetrator, who is seen deactivating his invisibility cloak. While he lets out a victorious roar, the other cub is seen to escape from there. Back at the Fire Observatory Station, Anna is extremely disheartened to find one of the trackers going offline. While Glenn states it as probably an accident or more like the natural order of things, Anna decides to check the cub for herself to learn about the cause of death, its nutritional status, and other post-mortem chemical studies that can be conducted. She's seen flying a helicopter and maintaining radio contact with Glenn. In the meantime, another grizzly at a distance is able to hear the roar of the predator and heads towards that direction. Upon seeing the predator, it lets out a roar and the duo charge at each other for a fight. The predator aims his shoulder cannon and is just about to fire a plasma bolt at the bear when the latter lands a huge blow on his face. The animal evades the plasma shot and sinks its teeth into the shoulder cannon, thereby breaking the weapon. Speaking of the missed plasma bolt, it hits a tree instead, which catches fire. By now, Anna has approached the site and is looking for the best place to land the helicopter when she suddenly spots a huge crater on the ground. But after the fire catches her attention, she decides to investigate the crater later and deal with the forest fire first. After contacting Glenn about it and calling for backup, she lands the helicopter and goes in search of the dead bear cub. By now, the fire has already started spreading to an extent where it's fair to actually call it a wildfire. Coming back to the battle between the predator and the bear, the wrestling continues and the alien is seen trying to attack the animal with its double wrist blades, only to miss it by a few inches and it gets pushed off the cliff into the stream below. The readers, along with the bear, get to see the glowing green blood of the predator scattered all over, which indicates that the hunter got injured during the battle. We see the bear getting a whiff of the smoke, and as he looks back, the forest is a wall of flames. Anna finally manages to reach the site of the dead bear cub and is shocked to find an unusual looking weapon, like a spear, next to it. It becomes clear that the cause of death is anything but natural, and Anna assumes that the weapon belongs to a poacher. She is also seen quite upset while examining the wounds on the dead bear cub and decides to take matters into her own hands. Scanning the area, she discovers traces of the strange glowing green blood. Not being able to comprehend what it is, she decides to see where the trail leads her. She even addresses the whole thing as Hansel and Gretel playing with Freddy Krueger. No points for guessing that it ultimately leads her to the Predator's spaceship, which was the crater that she saw from her helicopter. But before she can join the dots, the injured Predator approaches her and simply knocks her unconscious. Meanwhile, the forest fire has taken a turn for the worse. Predator Primal Part 2. Issue 2 picks up right where we left off. The Predator is seen picking up an unconscious Anna by her hand and scanning her using his thermal imaging ability. Clearly not interested in an easy prey like the defenseless and unconscious Anna, he drops her on the ground. Next, he removes his armor and places it on the ground, after which he resorts to using his Medicomp to treat his wounds. We see the Predator taking out some kind of syringe and jabbing himself with it. It's pretty clear that he's decided to pursue the grizzly again, and he's prepping himself for round 2. But, upon hearing Glenn's voice coming from the walkie-talkie that's lying next to Anna, he takes notice of it. We learn from the audio that the fire has been spreading pretty fast and it's very close to her last position. Glenn is seen in a helicopter himself trying to track Anna down after he lost communication with her. As for the Predator, he simply steps on the walkie-talkie and destroys it. After losing contact with Anna, Glenn blames her for never responding back and decides to reach out to her through her helicopter radio. It's also during the same time that we get a glimpse of a couple more helicopters that are trying to put out the wildfire. The Predator is seen discovering Anna's helicopter following the radio voice of Glenn, which he brutally pounces on, vandalizing the chopper beyond recognition. Anna, meanwhile, finally regains her consciousness. She thinks that she's been attacked by an invisible grizzly bear. Not wanting to take further chances, she decides to head back to her chopper. Upon seeing the condition of the helicopter, it dawns on her that there's someone out there that doesn't like her at all. The Forestry Service crew are seen doing their very best to get the fire under control, but they're not having much luck. Anna, seeing the other helicopters from a distance, starts to think about her next course of action. Well, speaking of action, the Predator goes back to the cliff where he was pushed and lets out a loud roar. This grabs the attention of the grizzly, which is now seen there with its cub. It leaves the cub behind and goes back to the Predator to continue the unfinished battle. As it rushes at the Predator, the latter throws its combi stick towards it, only to have the weapon graze its face. That does it for the bear, and it ferociously attacks the Predator. It lands a heavy blow on the Predator's face, and the alien decides to strike back with his wrist blades, but misses the bear once again. The duo wrestle with each other on the forest floor, each trying to crush the other. Anna, in the meantime, goes back to her destroyed chopper in the hopes of fixing the radio and trying to make some kind of contact with Glenn. Coming back to the fierce battle of the Predator and the bear, the Predator picks up a burning log and strikes the bear's face with it. But this only enrages the bear. It lands another huge blow on the face of the Predator, knocking his biomask off. Then, the bear picks up the Predator and bites into his shoulder before smashing him into a rock. This causes severe damage to the Predator, so much so that he can barely get up. The bear is shown to be leaving with its cub, and it becomes pretty clear that the predator has lost his battle against the bear. Realizing he's been defeated, the predator somehow gets up and makes it back to his spaceship. There, he does what he's meant to do. He activates his self-destruct device. As for Anna, she realizes that she won't be able to fix the radio, and after discovering a flare gun intact among the remains of the chopper, she fires it to signal Glenn. She's picked up in the chopper and escapes to safety, seconds before the spaceship of the predator is seen to detonate, resulting in a mini nuclear explosion. A week later, Anna returns to the site to investigate, but she finds nothing. She states that no one will ever know what actually happened there. The grizzly is seen walking away with its cub, but then we also get to see the face of the predator with the bears in the background, indicating that he has also somehow survived the explosion, and judging the predator by his expression, he knows he has picked the wrong fight. What do we at Marvelous Videos think? So, what we have here is the secluded Alaskan wilderness, an angry grizzly bear protective of its cub, an isolated forest ranger, and to add to that, the predator. Blend them well and garnish with a forest fire. There you have one very exciting comic series right in front of you. Agreed, it doesn't have too much dialogue, but it does make up for it with the exceedingly descriptive action panels. Give it a read if you haven't already. You're bound to have a good time. And with that, we've come to the end of our video. Do hit us with your thoughts in the comments section, and let us know after you've read the comic book. Also, have you seen Prey yet? What did you think? Stay tuned for more interesting content on Predator. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.